here today. Quite interesting class for you today because I have been talking with students about giving presentations. And I would like to talk to you today about something that came up in presentations. And I'll do it in that style, which is if you are going to the UK, what food you should eat and what drinks you should have with that food. I have been talking about it with my students in order to help them present. It's an easy topic, it's an enjoyable topic, and it's something that I think is close to the hearts of many of you guys. So let's get into it, and we are going to look at some of the food that you should try when you are going to the UK. Let me know in the comments what food we should try from your country, because I've been talking to students here in Spain, and what has come up in the conversation quite often is paella, or paella as we say in English, which is completely wrong, of course. Jamón. What else has come up? So cold soups like gazpacho and salmorejo have come up in the conversation. Tortilla. So the tortilla de patatas, which would be, often people say Spanish omelette. In English, really, I don't know. I think I would just call it tortilla because that's what I think of when I didn't know any Spanish. If I thought of a tortilla, I would think of this potato that's cut into, and an omelette is just egg, basically. But anyway, very interesting. What people from different parts of the world, and I'm very interested to know what should we have in your country and what drink should we have. I'm going to be looking at this right now, so let's go and let's see what we have for you. So the first thing, and maybe a lot of you will know, is the traditional fish and chips. This is something that comes up very often when people say, what should I eat when I go to England? What should I eat when I go to the UK? Well, fish and chips is often the answer you'll get. And I'll give you a secret why. Well, this is my opinion. You are free. Everybody's free to disagree, okay? But when I grew up in the UK and Ireland, and food was not something that was terribly... We were never passionate about food because we don't have a great food culture. Let's be honest. We do have great ingredients, but the food culture hasn't been the best. So people would kind of say it's very interesting for Italians or French or Spanish or people from mainland Europe to be very enthusiastic about food. Food for us is like fuel. Not so much nowadays. We love food and we're becoming more experimental. However, before, we didn't have an answer. It's like, well, whatever, Irish stew, fish and chips, haggis if you live in Scotland. These were like the signature dishes. But when you go to Europe, it depends on the region. It depends what grows there. It's very important for you guys. Whenever I talk about going somewhere in this country with my students, they'll often say, you have to try this. Oh, so you're going to try that food. Oh, you must have this. It's a must. Whereas if you're talking to somebody in the UK, they'll say, oh yeah, you have to go there, like that castle, or what were the pubs like? Was it where the pubs, like, did they have a good atmosphere? But food is generally, we're not as passionate about food as you guys. We are changing. We are becoming more open-minded, but we don't have the same culture. So for that reason, I know you guys are more passionate. So let's look at some cool, interesting dishes apart from fish and chips that you can have. But obviously fish and chips is nice. I think the typical fish that we would have would be cod, which is COD, or bacalhau in Portuguese and Spanish. So fish and chips, this is a classic British dish consisting of battered fish and deep fried chips. French fries in the United States, chips in the UK. If you didn't know, now you know. So batter is what we dip the fish in the batter and then we put it into the oil. And when you put it into the oil, you are deep frying. It's a lovely dish. Now, what can we have with this dish? I wrote it down here. Obviously, I have my own opinion, but I'm going to give you some options. Fish and chips, you can have beer, a nice light beer, lager, which is quite traditional. You could have, on the other hand, some cider. Cider is also here in the north of Spain, very popular, and in other parts of Europe, of course, in a lot of the countries. In the UK, you get cider grown in the south. I would say more in the southwest, around Cornwall region. So cider is another option. And what else do I have here? And of course, if you are a non-drinker, you've got the soft drinks, whatever you want. Okay. Obviously, sparkling water will keep the taste of the chips. But sparkling water is not so popular, I think, in the UK. Often you may ask, well, it depends. If you're in a restaurant, you'll get sparkling water. But if you're in a general kind of fish and chip shop and you ask for sparkling water, it's quite possible that they won't have it. Let's go on to our next one. So that's fish and chips, a traditional. Now we're going to move into the territory maybe of dishes you didn't know, because most people only know fish and chips. Right. This one is roast beef with Yorkshire pudding. So this is a very traditional, a traditional Sunday roast, which includes slices of beef, slices like this. You slice the beef with gravy and a crispy baked pudding made from flour, eggs, and milk. Yorkshire pudding, I suppose flour, eggs, and milk, you're looking at pancake kind of texture, but it gets a bit crispy. Absolutely gorgeous. This brown sauce is called gravy. When I was growing up, the only sauce was gravy. There's no other sauce. There was nothing like a cheese sauce or a Roquefort sauce. No nonsense. Gravy, and it's super simple. But that's our sauce, and don't offend us, okay? If you don't like it, don't talk about it, because we love it. And you pour the gravy on top. The Yorkshire pudding is, let me say, yeah, so we know what that is. And the beef. This is traditional Sunday meal, or on the weekend, you'll have this. And it's very, very common. As well, you'll have roast potatoes. Roast means the potatoes done in the oven. And as you can see, some peas, often called garden peas, and some carrots there. If you go to a pub on a Sunday around England or the UK and Ireland as well, you will see this on offer. It's very nice, perhaps for your first time or as a visitor. Maybe you might not like it because you're not used to it, but once you get used to it, you really look forward to it, you know. What can you have with roast beef? Well, you can have a full-bodied red wine, such as Cabernet Sauvignon. And if that's not available to you, let's say here in Spain, we're talking about maybe a strong wine, maybe a Ribera del Duero red wine, full-bodied. Now, if you want to go English style, which is kind of interesting while you're on holiday, and you can get this everywhere in the UK, this will be available to you. You could try an ale. An ale is like a tostada. It's kind of a brown beer. So an ale is, you can ask for this, and it's also known as bitter. Ale, where I'm from in Ireland, ale has gas, but in the UK often you have a bitter and it has no gas, and that's very traditional. So I would recommend that. I would do that if I were in the UK, because I don't normally, well, even when I was living there, I didn't really drink bitter, but now I feel a bit more like a tourist, so I would drink bitter. Lovely meal. You could also have, if you're a non-drinker, you could have pomegranate juice, which in Spanish is granada, and the other is cranberry. Now, I don't know what cranberry is in Spanish, but it's a kind of red juice, and your job is to find out what cranberry is. Like the band. You remember the band from Ireland, the Cranberries? You need to find out what that is. And of course, you can also have a nice cup of tea with this meal, because this is a hot meal and you can have a nice cup of tea. Remember, you got to make the tea right, okay? Black tea, which you know as breakfast tea, that is the standard tea. It's got to be nice and how you like it if you want to, but you have to put the milk in, okay? My wife is from Turkey. She doesn't take milk in her tea, or people there, but hey, we do. You got to put the milk in. So you take your tea with milk or sugar if you like. I take mine without sugar. Okay. Next is the full English breakfast. Something, again, early on the weekend. It's kind of can be treated like a brunch, because if we stay in bed a bit longer, if you are lucky, this is called a lie-in. A full English breakfast is a hearty, which means like it's a big one. It's a hearty breakfast that typically includes eggs, bacon, sausages, baked beans, grilled tomatoes, and toast. Absolutely gorgeous. When I go home, I really look forward to having a full breakfast. Depends where you are. I suppose if you're in Scotland, they'll call it a full Scottish breakfast. In Ireland, it's a full Irish breakfast. Generally the same. The baked beans up here, I think, you know what I'm going to do? I know I'm too big. I'm covering the pictures. I'm very sorry. So I'm going to make myself smaller so you can see the pictures. Okay, very sorry about that. So over here you can see the beans, and absolutely lovely. For your information, we have toast here. I don't know if you can see very well, but this should be toasted, but we just call it toast. Bread that you put in the machine, when it comes out, it's called toast. Not toasts. There's no plural. You'll have one slice of toast, and in general, it's toast. So we love toast, the sausages, of course. And what can we drink with this? Well, there are a few options. Typically, a nice cup of tea. Nice cup of tea. I told you how I take my tea. No sugar, a little bit of milk, and strong. But it's always the same type of tea. Of course, you can do what you want. But you could have an Earl Grey, but I would have Earl Grey is more, for me, it's a lighter tea. It's more perfumey. It's got the bergamot. For me, it's a light tea in the afternoon, and I'm going to talk about that later. Afternoon tea. But here we're talking standard cup of tea, breakfast tea, black, strong, and with a bit of milk. Well, it's always with a bit of milk. Okay. That is the full English breakfast. Oh, yes. So you can have your tea. If you want, you can have a coffee if you need that kick in the morning. Or obviously, if you had a lie-in on the weekend, you're waking up late, you need your coffee right now. You could also have orange juice, which might be more popular because when you go abroad in the summertime, you're talking about the south of Europe, you're talking about here in Spain. Orange juice is available, and it works very well. Fresh orange juice. It's obviously available in the UK too, but maybe not as common because it's cold. So you want something warm. Okay, but orange juice works very well. Right, let's move on to our next one. Bangers and mash. Bangers are the sausages. The mash is the mashed potato. There again, you have your garden peas and your gravy. Yummy, yummy dish. Really like it. It's made of sausages and mashed potatoes, often served with onion gravy. So the onions you will fry. You'll fry the onions and then you'll put it in the gravy and then you'll pour the gravy over the bangers and mash. This is a lovely hearty meal. Again, it's the type of thing when you're younger, and you, at the time, you'd ask your mother. At the time, now you can ask your father or your mother, what's for dinner? Bangers and mash. And you just, yes, you know. So lovely. Of course, all our food, as you can see, it's very basic, but it's like fuel, you know. What can you eat with bangers and mash? You could, if you go and you get it in a pub, like a gourmet pub or a gastro pub, you could have it with a nice pint of ale. Ale, again, is the kind of brown beer. You could have it with a dry cider. If you want as well, we've got the gravy there. We have the meat. You could have it with a medium body red wine, such as a Pinot Noir or maybe a Beaujolais. And of course, if you're a non-drinker, the soft drink of your choice. Soft drink is Fanta, lemonade, Coke. Soft drink. I would say to kids, fizzy drinks, but soft drink is the general term. Okay, refrescos, I think. Yes, it is in Spanish. Moving on then to our next one is shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie. It's a savory dish made with minced lamb, cordero, or beef, topped, which means on top, topped with mashed potatoes and baked in the oven. Okay, it's super delicious. I love this meal, and very popular. Everybody loves shepherd's pie. You have to try it. We're not in competition with you guys. It's just these are kind of traditional hearty meals. What can you have with a shepherd's pie? With this one, you want something a bit stronger. So if we're talking about red wine, we're talking Cabernet Sauvignon or Shiraz, Syrah. Here in Spain, Riba del Duero, or maybe, let me think of a strong red wine, maybe Priorat, around that region. I'm pretty sure Priorat's quite strong. Now, one thing that I would recommend if you're used to drinking red wine, just go for something different, and I recommend a stout. A stout is what Guinness is. Guinness is a stout. But when you're in the UK, you'll ask for a local stout. So we have beer. Let's say beer is golden. Ale is... you notice why my fingers are together here? Because if I do this, it's a rude sign in English. So we've got to keep these fingers together. So keeping them together. Ale is brown. And then thirdly, we have stout, which is black. Beer golden, ale brown, stout is black. So try this with a stout, local, and it'd be very... sometimes they will make these meals with a bit of stout in the sauce. It's interesting. Now, if you're in Ireland or if you're in Scotland, you might want to even go further, and you can even have a whiskey with this. So it complements the smokiness. A smoky whiskey would complement the flavors of the shepherd's pie. Great stuff, shepherd's pie. And then moving down to the southwest corner of England, we have, from that area which is called Cornwall, we have the Cornish pasties. Cornish pasties are filled with meat and vegetables and originating from Cornwall. This is something that might look familiar to you. Very popular in Argentina, very popular here in Spain, empanadas. It is essentially an empanada, but in England and in the UK, it's called a pasty. So, what can you have with a pasty? A light, refreshing beer, such as lager or pale ale. Of course, if you have it hot, you can have a tea. In the evening time, I could imagine at home having a nice cup of tea with a Cornish pasty, and also water works well as well because it will clear your palate before. So let me know in the comments what you think of these. What would you recommend from your country? And if you have any questions, let me know. What would you recommend to eat from your region? What would you recommend to marry that with? So to marry something is to put it together or to complement it. Would it be a local wine or would it be from a different region? Now, as a dessert, if we move on, you've got sticky toffee pudding. It's a sweet dessert made with dates, dátiles, and a caramel sauce. So you're gonna, can you guess what drink you're gonna have with this at this point? Yes, nice cup of tea. But I will not rule out a nice cup of coffee either, because that would be, yes, a nice cup of coffee or a nice cup of tea, I think. And of course, if you don't want that, you've got water as well, which will work well. So that is things you should try if you're going to the UK. A lot of you are really interested in what you can eat, what you should try. Those are 8 things you should try. Now, I'm going to take you into a territory that I think you are interested in. A lot of people talk about this afternoon tea. Well, afternoon tea, it's not something, we have tea all during the day. For me, it's like saying to an Argentinian, what about afternoon mate? Maybe they'll say, well, I have it all. I just have it. So tea is the same. Maybe years and years ago, there was this tradition of having tea, but generally people are working and you'll have tea, and you're going to have tea in the afternoon anyway at some point. The afternoon is between 12 and, I would say, 12 and 5 o'clock. That is the afternoon. This is very confusing for people here in Spain who call the afternoon maybe after having lunch. So you're talking from 4 o'clock to the evening. But the afternoon is from 12 o'clock until 5 o'clock. It's generally the working hour time. So afternoon tea, a quintessential British experience, which typically includes tea, scones with jam and clotted cream, and finger sandwiches. Okay, so I imagine this is, well, I have experience of this. This would, ideally, you're going to have this before dinner time. So you will have had lunch at 1 o'clock. And after lunch, you're full. Lunch between 1 and 2. So then you maybe start to get a bit peckish. Peckish means a bit hungry. Around, could be 5 o'clock, 4:30, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. You might have dinner at 6. But if you have this, you'll probably have it at 7. So anyway, let's say between 4 and 5. Tea, sandwiches to kill your hunger. And the scones, I've already annoyed some people now, I know I have, because I've said the word scones. Now, scones are a type of cake. They're quite basic. You can have them with raisins inside. And you would put the cream and the jam. Now, jam is raspberry, strawberry, blueberry, blackberry jam. But marmalade is orange jam. So in Spanish people say mermelada. Mermelada translated into English is jam, but marmalade in English is orange jam. So normally you have this with jam and cream, a good cream, a clotted cream, and a nice cup of tea. Now, what I said, I offended people. People get offended if you don't say the word like you say it. So there is a debate, not between different countries, but between people in general of how you say scones. Because some people say scones, like I do, and some people say scones. And this is an enjoyable little debate around tea. Again, would you like tea and scones? It's like, oh, you mean tea and scones? And then I'll say, no, I mean tea and scones. And we know we're having this debate already. So, people, that's an enjoyable argument. So would you imagine you are a scones person or a scones person? I'm scones. It's not got to do with your country. It's got to do with how you probably grew up saying it in your house. definitely love scones. I would, not having cream in my house growing up, it's not something that's in the fridge. I would love it. I would have it with nicely baked scones with melted butter, because we don't use olive oil traditionally. We have butter in the fridge, and with butter and jam. Absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that for today, guys, because I've got to jump into a class. But I hope it's been enjoyable for you to look at this, and let me know, as I said, in the comments, anything that we should have from your country. Let me know, and until the next time, have a great day and have a great weekend. All the best.